So back at the project, let me quit the development server because now I need to install another package. And I will simply install these free templating engines so that we can work with them. So let's install them with npm install -- save, because all free engines are part of our Node code and shipped with the code we deploy on some computer in the end. So let's install them as production dependencies. And there we need to install EJS, that is the package name. And links to the websites of these packages with more documentation can also be found in the last lecture of this module. So EJS. Then we also got Pug. And handlebars. There is a handlebars package, but that's actually the wrong one. We need express-handlebars here because this has built-in integration with Express. EJS and Pug already have that built into their core packages, you could say. So let's now hit enter, and now these free packages will be downloaded. Now what you can also see here, by the way, is that you can of course install multiple packages at once by simply repeating or by adding all the names after npm install. Now the packages are installed, and we'll not use them all at the same time, but one after another, so that we can have a close look at how they work. And let's start with the most exotic package, Pug. To use that, we have to go to the app.js file, and now we have to let express.js know, and that is an Express feature, not Node, by the way. Another strong reason why we want to use Express, because with Node, standalone Node, this would be harder. You would have to do all of that manually. Here, we can just tell Express, hey, we get a templating engine that is Express conforming, and that is the case for all three we installed, so please use it to render dynamic templates. We do that by going into the app.js, and after we created our Express app here and stored it in the app constant, we can set a global configuration value. Now, what is that? App set allows us to set any values globally on our Express application. And this can actually also be keys or configuration items Express doesn't understand. In that case, it just ignores them, but we could actually read them from the app object with app-get. And this would be another way of sharing data across our application, but not really something I'm interested in here. What we can do is we can use a couple of reserved key names here, so configuration items we can set that do lead to Express.js behaving differently. And you see a list of all these items here in this table. Now, most of them don't really matter for us here, but feel free to browse through that. Interesting for us is the view engine and the views key. View engine allows us to tell Express, hey, for any dynamic templates we're trying to render, and there will be a special function for doing that, please use this engine we're registering here. And views allows us to tell Express where to find these dynamic views. So what we can do here is we can app set and set the view here, view engine, to a string Pug. Now, you can't enter anything here. We use Pug here because we installed the Pug templating engine, and this engine actually ships with built-in Express support and auto-registers itself with Express, so to say. So that is why this works. It doesn't work for all engines, but you find more in the links in the last lecture. Here, it does work. Pug is supported out of the box. And with that, we're already set to go. We can set an additional configuration, though. We can let Express know where to find our views. However, the default setting here, this is the last column, the default setting for views already is basically our main directory and then the views folder. Still, I'll send it explicitly here to show you how this would work. If you would store your views in another folder, which is not called views, but maybe templates or whatever it is, then you have to set this configuration item here, whoops, this one. And here I will set it to, even though it wouldn't be needed because views is the default. So now we're telling Express that we want to compile dynamic templates with the Pug engine and where to find these templates. The last step, of course, is that we add templates. So let's go to views and let's add a shop.pug file here. So we now have a templating file, and now Pug actually works different to normal HTML. So I can't just copy over this whole HTML code. The good thing is, however, in my IDE here, if I type HTML in the shop.pug file, and then I use this HTML5 template, I get a Pug structure of this. And here we already see the minimal HTML syntax. We got no normal HTML tags, but keep in mind that the Pug templating engine will compile our code to normal HTML in the end. So this here is basically the equivalent to this part here, you could say, except for the style sheet imports. If we wanted to add these, we can do that here too. And thankfully, the IDE helps me here. If I type link and hit tab, I get a Pug conform implementation of this. So here I now can also add my links. The paths, of course, to the CSS files are the same as before. So this is now how we installed Pug and how we added it. Now let's quickly finish this file to look like this file before we then actually have a look at how we can add dynamic content. So let's replicate this link here and import the product CSS file. And now for the body, here I got a header and I got this main area. So let's replicate this in Pug quickly. For this, in the body, indentation matters in Pug. That's important. You basically structure your nesting of HTML with indentation levels here. So if head is nested in HTML, then it's indented. And if meta is nested in head, it's also indented. If they're on the same level, they are siblings. So this is how that works. So if we want to add something into body and not next to it, we have to indent here. And then I add my header, which has this main header class. So if I type, again, another useful feature of the IDE, of Visual Studio Code, if I type dot and then the name like this and I hit tab, then this looks like it didn't do anything, but actually this is the representation of a div with this class. Now I want a header with this class, so I just write header. So this strange syntax will create a header element with this CSS class. And this is something you have to get used to, and where I strongly recommend diving into the official Pug docs if you want to stick to that. Here, by the way, I will replace the title with my shop. So let's not just add the header, but also nav, unordered list, and so on. For this, in the header, I want to nest something, so let's add an indentation level, and then unordered list dot and the class. And now the same. Whoops, that was the nav, not unordered list. So that should be a nav item. Now for the unordered list, let's take that class. Let's go in there. It should be nested in the nav. So let's indent unordered list dot class name. And now we got the list items. So here, let's again pick the list item here, or the class on it. Indent, because it's nested in the unordered list, list item dot and then the class. And now, last but not least, I have the anchor tag, which also has the active class, but which then also should have some text content in it, and then also have a link. So let's now go in there, nest this, anchor tag, and the class. If you hit tab, you automatically, this is the attribute notation, so in parentheses after the anchor tag, or after any element, but always without any white space in between. This allows you to add attributes onto the HTML element. So here this should go to just slash. And now for the text content, you can add this next to it. So shop, like this. This will basically place this text between the opening and closing anchor tag. Now this is the setup I want to have here. Of course, we have two list items. We also got add product, which leads to this link. So I have to replicate this. So next to the first list item, I add another one, main header item. And then I have my anchor tag, this one without the active class, just with the link. And there I'll say add product. With this, if I run npm start, we wouldn't see anything. And I am aware of the fact that I didn't add the main content, but let's ignore that for now. With this, however, we wouldn't render this template, because we're not telling Express to do so. We're telling Express that it should use this templating engine whenever we try to render a template, but we don't try to do that. So in shop.js, where we do define what should be our response, we have to change the response, because right now we're sending the HTML file. Now we want to do something else. We can use response, and then there is a special render method. This is provided by express.js, and it will use the default templating engine, which is why we had to define it here. It will use that default templating engine and then return that template. And now, since we defined that all views are in the views folder, we also don't have to construct a path to that folder. Instead, we can just say shop. We also don't need shop.pug because we defined pug as the default templating engine, so it will look for .pug files. With this, if we save and we reload the shop page, we see the header. We don't see the main content because we didn't add this, but the rest is working just fine. And if you inspect this or view the page source, you see this is normal HTML code. So it's not our minimal version, which the browser wouldn't be able to read anyways, but it is the HTML code Pug generated for us based on that minimal version. Now, one thing we're not doing here is we're not outputting anything dynamic. But since that is the reason why we added templating engines, let's do that too in the next lecture.